Yeah.
It's a transposing of huge personalities.
Lots of
I feel like I'm in the ocean and I don't, I'm just treading water. Our first speaker today is Reuben Schuff. Reuben is working toward completing his second Competent Communicator, or CC, manual, and he's working on Project 3 within that manual. He has some exciting news to share and encouragement to stir our emotions and his own. Ooh, the mystery speech. As many of you know, Reuben is an avid traveler and space exploration enthusiast. His speech today branches from those two great loves. I present to you Reuben Schuff, All Things Are Possible. All Things Are Possible, Reuben Schuff.
This Thanksgiving morning, I crept out of a tent into the chilly air as the first light peeked over the horizon on the Utah plateau. I looked up and I saw Jupiter and Saturn as bright stars in the dawn sky. I couldn't find Mars. My friend was looking for the coffee pot and stove. He's a bit more practical than I am. It's okay, Mars was just on the other side of Earth that morning. No big deal. You might be wondering, what is my obsession with the location of planetary objects when clearly hot coffee is more important? I'm glad you asked. Let's go back to freshman year of college. One of my engineering roommates asked me the standard question that was on the mind of every freshman. What do you want to be when you grow up? With the hope and pride of parents that had raised me to believe that all things are possible, I confidently answered, I want to design and build rocket engines for interplanetary spaceships. Met with this rather bold assertion, the voice of reason happening to be my 19-year-old roommate, who was more wise and sophisticated than I was at that time, and still is, said, well, now that's rather ambitious, don't you think? Are there any jobs doing that? Confident in my dream, I was undeterred. However, there were a few problems. Number one, the remarkably small number of interplanetary spaceships currently being produced by our little mighty planet Earth. Problem number two was a rather severe stutter in my speech that impaired my ability to communicate in most situations, including anything like my name or anything else of consequence. Number three was a rather angry, arrogant teenager who didn't need to listen to anybody about anything. Fortunately, all things are possible. Without much hope of addressing problem number one, the lack of a robust spaceship economy, I decided to put my efforts towards problem number two, lack of ability to speak. Fortunately, I met a person who started trying to teach me that my ability to communicate was more than a string of struggled words. Maybe he should have been a Toastmaster. He also tried to teach me that it is possible to be a person who stutters and communicate well. Who knew? That issue of the angry, arrogant, know-it-all teenager would be left to the grace of God, who I still think doesn't know what to do with me most of the time. At about the same time, there was another story unfolding in a land far, far away, California. A rather ambitious man was making his way, developing new technology and inventing things in the days of that internet. Anybody remember that? After a few failures in picking himself back up, he managed to make millions and was embarking upon a rather crazy idea: building a rocket ship. Good thing that he knew that all things are possible. Today, SpaceX is one of the largest startups in the country and the only company in our generation that's actually built a spaceship that NASA now buys a ride on. I started out a more traditional path. After school, I went to work for one of those big name companies. And I learned a lot, but I didn't last long. Through a series of miraculous events and bouncing off of both coasts, I ended up in Cary, North Carolina, working on helicopters. A couple months ago, my phone rang. It was a recruiter. It took a couple months, but SpaceX asked me if I would move to a land far, far away, Los Angeles, and take on a new challenge. I told him I'd think about it. The problem was, I like it here. It's comfortable, I'm safe, and I have a lot to lose to pack up everything and go moving across the country to do something that most people think is somewhat crazy and rather ambitious. But I told him I'd give it the old college try. Because all things are possible. My 5-year plan has changed 4 times in 5 years. But I have an opportunity and a purpose to give the best I can, to be all I can be, and to build rocket engines for interplanetary spaceships. But more importantly, to be here and to share with all of you with great assurance that, in fact, all things are possible. Please, go build your spaceship, Mr. Toastmaster.